So now we're going to start off with health food that may make you angry, addicted, depressed, and ruin your marriage. And I'm going to start off not with that. Someone said, are you going to make us wait? And I'll make you wait a little bit, but not forever. This is not it. If you watch or read books on the gut-brain connection and getting good bacteria, one of the first things you're going to hear is to take probiotics, and I actually don't suggest that. And the second thing you're going to be told is to eat fermented foods, because fermented foods also have good bacteria, and they do. But I'm going to look at the actual research. Are there any side effects, potentially anyway, for fermented foods? Now here is a meta-analysis. Now a meta-analysis, once again, is when researchers go look at every study they can find on a given subject, pool them all together, put all the data together to see do the studies support or go against this hypothesis, whatever it is. And so here's a meta-analysis of soy and gastric cancer risk in the journal Cancer Science. Researchers looked at 20 different studies on consumption of fermented soy products and discovered that fermented soy, which might include tempeh, miso, etc., increases the risk of gastric cancer by 22%. People say, well, should we stop eating soy? Non-fermented soy foods lowered the risk of gastric cancer by 36%. So when soy is fermented, now once again, I got to be clear, any epidemiologists or scientists or medical professionals here may say, Chad, but correlation is not necessarily causation, and that is true. Now there are some potential causative factors on why it may cause cancer, and we'll get back to that in just a moment. But we're going to see repeatedly the potential impact of fermented vegetables specifically on the chance of cancer. Here is something called, I was just with some Korean folks over the weekend, and one of them asked me specifically about kimchi. And kimchi is a common Korean food often made from fermented cabbage, radishes, and other vegetables. In a case-controlled study reported in the World Journal of Gastroenterology, kimchi was found to increase the likelihood of gastrointestinal cancer. And, well, we'll keep going. This is, I have a video on my YouTube channel, which once again is Health and Homestead, and people get furious at me for this video. I don't mind. I don't mind people. I'm not trying to make people angry, but if people get angry, I'm okay with it. That's not the goal, but this is the actual name of the study, and people mock me even though I'm just naming them. This is the actual word-for-word name of the study. Pickled Food and Risk of Gastric Cancer, a systematic review and meta-analysis of English and Chinese literature. So looking at English and Chinese literature scientific studies. And now, just to clarify, there's two ways to pickle things. There's using, what's the standard way we think of pickling it? Vinegar, right? But the traditional historical way of pickling was fermenting. And so it's not, today in America we only think of using vinegar. But by the way, is vinegar a fermented food? Yeah, it is, right? So they're both fermented. It's just, one of them is already fermented and then you just stick things in it. But regardless of that, this is a meta-analysis of 60 different studies. They found 60 studies. They compiled them all together. It was looking at pickled vegetables in general and cancer risk. Overall, the studies revealed pickled vegetables were associated with a 50% increased risk of gastric cancer. That's seemingly kind of significant. Now, if you're someone you're not really worried about cancer, you may not care as much. I come from a family where most adults in my family have had cancer. Almost every single one of them. I have an uncle that hasn't had cancer, but I think almost everybody else has. And so I want to try to avoid as much as possible. I may get it anyway, but there are certain factors that I don't want to get sunburned all the time, and it's not going to be a nice addition to, it's going to make me more likely to. My dad had melanoma for that matter. I still get out in the sun, but I try not to burn, So you do the best you can, and you can do with this information whatever you like, but what about, this is looking at a study report in the journal Nutrition and Cancer showed that vegetable consumption lowers your risk for breast cancer, while pickled vegetables increase the chances of breast cancer. And these are, once again, correlation is not necessarily causation, but it's interesting that time and time again they see the very same thing. Looking at sauerkraut and laryngeal cancer, a matched case control study was done looking on the effects of different lifestyle habits as risk factors for laryngeal cancer. It was found that higher sauerkraut consumption is associated with higher rates of laryngeal cancer. So the question is, what if this is in fact true? What might the cause be? Why is it that fermented foods may make people more likely to have cancer? And they come up with some particular reasons. One of the suggestions is that it may make some of the time molding. Mold may actually take place during the fermentation process. And mold, by the way, mold doesn't necessarily, most mold does not create cancer. But what it does is mold can lower the immune function so that your body can't fight cancer as well. Because the average human, it is suggested by researchers that the average human is probably making anywhere from about 2 to 5 cancer cells per day. So today you've probably made 2 to 5 cancer cells, but most of the time, if your immune system is functioning well, your immune system will just attack via things like something called natural killer cells. And those natural killer cells are apt to just go take out those aberrant cells that have been created, that we call cancer cells, and they never become a problem. The trouble is when the immune system can't attack them, I can go deeper into that, but I'll leave it at that for now. So that could be one reason that it may increase the rates of cancer. High salt could be one of the reasons. Now, I'm not against using any salt. Salt is beneficial for the human body, but you can overdo salt. So you don't want to use excess amounts of salt. Some people like me, I come from a family. It runs in the family that we get the opposite of what most Americans have. We get what's called hyponatremia, which is too low sodium. And I've had it repeatedly where I get too low, and if you get too low in sodium, you lose all your energy. So I have to make a point of adding salt to my food. If I don't add salt to a few meals, I'll start losing my energy. It runs in my family. My grandpa was in the hospital with it. My uncle was in the hospital with it. I've never been in the hospital with it, but I've been tested, and I was low in sodium also. So there are some people like me, but a minority of people struggle with that like I do. I've run into some people, but it's not very common. So what is the cause? Now, what is the cause of this potential carcinogen impact of the fermented foods? Well, in the journal Food Control, studies reported called lactic acid bacteria in kimchi might be a cause for carcinogen production in the intestine. And they state that fermented food evidently caused the gut to produce pro-carcinogenic enzymes from the lactic acid. And so it seems that something in the process can make these enzymes that may become carcinogenic in the body. So I'm not going to go into any great detail into that. But another thing that you may know is alcohol, which is another fermented food. We know that it is a causal link to cancer. There's no question when it comes to alcohol itself. Research has shown the causal connection to cancer and cancer of the esophagus, larynx, pharynx, mouth, colon, rectum, breast, and liver. And what the researchers say is that there is no safe levels of drinking. Like even minimal drinking still increases the rates of things like breast cancer in women. So there's really, researchers are now saying there's no safe levels when it comes to that. You may hear people say it's a very popular thing today. I don't know if it's as popular as it was just a few years ago, but you go into any health food store and they're going to be selling kombucha, telling you of the benefits to it. And let's look at this. It's basically kombucha. It's reported that it's a fermented drink. People many times make it at home, but it's reported that people feel good when they drink kombucha. It's also claimed that this is because of antioxidants and other substances. Well, is that the reason why people feel good drinking it? Well, let's look at the research. Okay, kombucha tea is a fermented drink. When home brewed, it typically has 1 to 2% alcohol, but it may reach as high as 3%. And when bought in stores, it's supposed to have no more than 0.5%, but nobody actually does any investigations to see if it does. And by the way, upwards of 3%, that's about as much alcohol as you might have in a wine cooler. So does it make sense why people feel so good when they drink kombucha? Yeah. Yes, it does feel good when you drink alcohol. It makes sense, right? And some people who don't drink, they'll drink kombucha not realizing they're drinking. Now, it may not have as much alcohol as your average beer or something like that. But yes, you're going to feel good probably, but it's not because of antioxidants, it's because alcohol makes you feel good. And but once again, alcohol is a carcinogen, so it's not something that's healthy for you. And so if you don't get the good bacteria from pills or from fermented foods, where can you get the good bacteria, like this lactobacillus bacterium that you may hear about? Well, in fact, you can get it simply, like, instead of having to get it from fermented cabbage, you can get it from the cabbage. Oh, just eating cabbage will give you the good bacteria. It doesn't have to be fermented. And where do I get my good gut bacteria? Once again, from the fruits and vegetables as you eat them. So you eat them, a variety of them will give you the good bacteria that you're looking for. So we still have not gotten to the food that could make you angry, addicted, depressed, anxious, and ruin your marriage. Now actually we're going to get to that. That's what we're going to look at. So, but to do that, I need to explain a little bit of physiology. And I don't know if we talked about this yet. I've talked so many places so often I get a little confused where I talk about something. We're going to talk about intestinal permeability, also called, the colloquial term is leaky gut. And basically, if you were to look, this is supposed to be the inside of an intestine. So this is the wall of the intestine. There'd be one up here, and the feces, would be going through the intestines here. And you have a lining of your intestines, and it's basically this single layer of cells called the epithelium, this epithelial layer. And in this, what happens is, you are supposed to have this, you're going to have your feces, which is filled with things like bacteria, and you're supposed to have nice tight junctions like this, so that the bacteria can't pass right through, that the wall of the intestines only allows vitamins and minerals and those kind of things. When it wants them to come through, it allows them through. Now that's in a normal, healthy intestine. But in somebody who has what's called leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability, what happens is they also have that layer, that epithelial layer, but it's inflamed, and what that can do is it can break the tight junctions of the intestines. And as it breaks those, they're supposed to be nice and tight, but it can break them open. And what happens is the bacteria or undigested protein, or what are called endotoxins, can pass right through on the side. It's called paracellular transport. It goes right through beside the cell. Sometimes it can bust right through, go transcellularly through, and the bacteria can go right into the bloodstream. And when it does this, you end up having an inflammation in your intestines. Now, a very clear example of this, about 1% of society has something called celiac disease. You've probably heard about celiac. I'm guessing many of you, I'm guessing some of you 40, 50 years ago, you'd never heard of celiac, and now pretty much everybody knows about celiac disease. And you probably, even if you don't know someone with celiac, you probably know someone who's sensitive to gluten. And as we said, roughly about 5% of people have some kind of sensitivity to wheat or gluten, and about 1% have a full-on autoimmune disease called celiac. And so that's about 6% of people. Most people can handle it just fine. But in those who have celiac disease, specifically celiac, they will have, if they eat any gluten, or it has to be enough, but it will cause, it can be a tiny, tiny amount, a person with celiac, and they eat it, and it just breaks the junctions, it creates inflammation, and for those who are very sensitive like that, it may cause this inflammation for an entire month. So this is, so that's why when somebody gets off of it, they may be off of it for 3-4 days and I don't notice any difference. But if they truly have celiac, it might take a month or more for their intestines to settle down and they start feeling normal again. And so that's why it's important to be careful for those people. So looking at intestinal permeability, research reported in internal and emergency medicine reveals that certain substances can cause the junctions of the gut to open and become permeable, as in the term leaky gut. And some of the causes of leaky gut include infections from bacteria, a high-fat diet can do it, alcohol can do it, allergens, high refined sugar content, or high sodium or high salt can do it. So once again, it could be high fat, it could be high sugar, any one of these things can actually do it. Because some people, they push, well actually very few people push sugar. There's kind of this idea on the internet that our government pushed sugar back in the 70s, and you go look at the guidelines for food, they were not actually pushing sugar, but it did get put in our food like crazy, but it wasn't so, I'm not defending the government, but it's kind of a false narrative on the internet. But so high-fat diet, alcohol, all these different things can cause leaky gut. Well, now we're really going to get into what we're talking about. This is research on marital arguments and leaky gut. And what do we find? In the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology, researchers found increased intestinal permeability in couples who had more hostile marital disagreements. So it could be that the reason husband and wives are sometimes having problems in the home is because something's actually going on in their gut. They have inflammation in their intestines, they have leaky gut, they have toxins going right from their intestines going into their bloodstream, and they don't realize, they have no idea. They may not have stomach pain at all, but it might be impacting them, making them more likely to have arguments in the home. Okay, so we just mentioned some things that could potentially do it, but I'm going to share, but those, typically most of those things, people like sugar, almost nobody, I don't know of anybody who thinks sugar is a health food. Many of those things we don't think of as health foods, but let's look at some research on spices. Can they impact character? Researchers discovered that people perceived that individuals who like spicy food were more prone to risk-taking. So they investigated and found that people who do enjoy spicy food do indeed tend to enjoy risks more than those who are not spicy eaters. So they set up a study and put it to the test, and they had people eat spicy food, and then they took a psychological experiment called the Iowa Gambling Task. And it turned out that eating spicy food increased the individual's risk-taking, so it may impact character. So only come as kind of a vague thing that it might make you more likely to take risks if you eat spicy food. Well, okay, interesting, but that doesn't prove anything yet. Now, here's some research on intestinal permeability and certain spices. Are there certain spices that we know can increase intestinal permeability? A study in the Journal of Nutrition, researchers looked at the impact of certain spices on intestinal permeability, and it revealed that certain spices, including cayenne, paprika, and chili, can increase intestinal permeability. Now, we're going to come back to that. Now, I don't know, because there's two kinds of paprika. There's the non-spicy paprika, and there is a spicy paprika. In the United States, I think more often we just have the non-spicy one. I don't know which one they used in this study. I couldn't really tell. So it's hard to say either way. But regardless, certain spices like cayenne and chili powder clearly can open up the junctions of the intestines and cause what is called leaky gut. Well, let's go forward. What about aggression and spices? 3 studies were reported in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology looking at spicy food intake and what they call trait aggression. The first study found that those who like spicy food have more trait aggression. But correlation is not always causation, so they conducted 2 additional studies and found that consumption of more versus less spicy food evidently led to higher rates of aggressive cognition or aggressive thinking, as well as perceiving others to be more aggressive. So they found that if you feed people more spicy food, they're more likely to be more aggressive toward other people, or think aggressive thoughts toward other people, but secondarily, they think when they're eating spicy food that people are being aggressive toward them, even if they're not being aggressive toward them. So that's, once again, quite interesting. The study points out that the Malaysian prison system feeds their prisoners non-spicy food to help lower their levels of aggression. Now, I've been to Malaysia, beautiful country. It's kind of one of the foodie capitals of the world, and they do, I gotta admit, have a lot of really good food there. But they're generally a spicy culture. Their food is quite spicy. But they looked at the research and they're like, okay, well, we may like this spicy food, but if people are in prison, maybe we can help them settle down a little bit, and so they don't feed them the spicy food while they're in prison. And once again, it can help lower levels of aggression. You can help people to calm down by changing their diet. And anybody know who this fella is?
Mao.
Yeah, that's Mao, right? Looks like a friendly chap, huh? Well, he was one of the top 2 mass murderers in human history, as you may know. But there was a man by the name of Otto Braun, who was a liaison. So remember when East Germany was annexed to the Soviet Union, you had the Russian side or the communist side of Berlin there, and there was a man who was a German on the eastern side, and he became a liaison between East Germany and Mao, so he could go work with Mao. And he tells this story. I'm going to read what he said, what Otto Braun said about working with Mao. He said, Otto Braun said, for example, for a long time I could not accustom myself to the strongly spiced foods such as hot fried peppers, which is traditional in southern China, especially in Hunan, Mao's birthplace. Mao said to Otto, the food of the true revolutionary is the red pepper. He also said, and he who cannot endure red peppers is also unable to fight. He said, you want to be a good fighter, you've got to be able to eat the spicy food. Now, once again, this is not a scientific study. This is just kind of an anecdotal history. This was the belief of Mao. And now we have some evidence from research that, yes, it can create aggressive cognition. It can make people more combative. My favorite food for years was Thai food. And so much so that my wife and I had Thai food for our wedding. That's what we had catered at our wedding. And I'll tell you more stories about our marriage also in a moment. But nevertheless, we were out to eat at a Thai restaurant. And you know how sometimes you go to a Chinese restaurant or something, and they'll give you kind of a placemat and tell you some history of China or whatever. Well, they had that at one of the Thai restaurants we were at. And it said on this placemat how the king of Thailand believed that the spicy food was negatively impacting the character of the Thai people, so he outlawed eating spicy food in Thailand. Wow. Well, do they still eat non-spicy? No, it's one of the spiciest places in the world. You know, often you try to force somebody not to do something, and they're more prone to do it if you try to stop them, right? But, well, I'll come back to this. Spices and alcohol addiction. In the journal Psychiatry Investigation, researchers looked at people's preference for spicy food and also their genetics. In the conclusion of the study, they state a strong preference for spicy food can be assumed to be a risk factor for alcohol dependence. That people who are eating more spicy food are going to be more prone to being addicted to alcohol. Wow. Well, let's go even further. In a study in the British Medical Journal of nearly 500,000 people, it's found that those who ate more spicy food smoked more tobacco and drank more alcohol. Wow. Who would have ever guessed such a thing? Well, I was reading in an old book, it said this: spices at first irritate the tender coating of the stomach. That's what we just talked about, this epithelial layer. It irritates this tender coating, but finally destroys the natural sensitiveness of this delicate membrane. The blood becomes fevered. The modern word would be inflamed. That's what we see. The blood becomes fevered. The animal propensities are aroused while the moral and intellectual powers are weakened and become servants to the baser passions. So it fits exactly with the research we've been looking at. Let's go even further though. What about this whole making people more prone to drinking and smoking? Listen to this. A similar condition is produced under the irritating influence of fiery spices. With the stomach in such a state, there is a craving for something more to meet the demands of the appetite, something stronger until still stronger. Next, you'll find your sons out on the street learning to smoke. What's that have to do? Who'd have ever guessed? Well, that's what the research shows today. It says, it is a grievous lesson, it makes them deathly sick, yet they press the matter through with a perseverance that would be praiseworthy in a better cause. Tobacco weakens the brain and paralyzes its fine sensibilities. Its use excites a thirst for strong drink, and in very many cases lays the foundation for the liquor habit. Exactly like we're seeing in the research today. Now, another thing, if it's causing this increased intestinal permeability, this leaky gut, what about, could it also cause depression? Because there is a gut-brain connection. That's the name of the seminar, right? A study of 1,771 college students tested with the DASS, it's the Depression and Anxiety Stress Scale, found that consumption of spicy food was associated with depression symptoms, with more spice connected to more depression. Even just 1 or 2 days a week of eating spicy food increases the chances of people being depressed. That is significant. So imagine A couple that you may not even notice, you may not be depressed, you might just be a little more cranky. You might be more likely to just argue with your spouse. And because women are, they find that women are more prone to depression, but this is the thing, I don't know that it's actually true. To a degree, I think it's that women are a little more perceptive of the fact that they're depressed, whereas a guy will manifest depression often as anger. And so, he's not depressed, he thinks, but he might just show anger. And so, habitually angry man may be a sign he's depressed, he just doesn't know. He just seems like a cranky man. But it might not be that he's simply cranky, he might be actually depressed. He just doesn't know. So, once again, eating even just once a week may increase the rates of depression. The same study found that eating spicy food greater than or equal to 3 days a week increased the chances of struggling with anxiety by 50%. 50%. And, well, I went to a country known as one of the spiciest countries in the world. And when I got there, I figured there would be a lot of abuse of women and children. In the way you understand, I'm not just talking about physical. And I figured that was the case, but I didn't know the statistics. And I was speaking next to the second largest medical institution in the world. It's actually a hospital that has 10,000 patients a day. 10,000, it's hard to believe. 10,000 patients a day, and that's like a small city just going to the doctor in one facility. But nevertheless, I was speaking to mainly medical professionals, doctors, nurses, and then some other folks there too, just next door to the hospital there, or across the street, I should say. And one of the pediatricians came up to me afterward, and he said, I'm a pediatrician, I work with children day in, day out. He said the official government statistics in this country that I was visiting are that 50% of children are abused in this way in this country, not physically. You understand what I'm saying? And he said, but I think the statistics are actually way off. He said, because I'm working with children every single day, he said, I think the numbers are closer to 80 to 95% of children. And so then I asked a friend of ours who was an American who had lived there, I said, do you know about all the abuse of women and children in this country? And the man said, oh yeah, I know about it. He said, my wife asked one of our workers there if, she said, is it true, we'll call it abuse of women. We all know what I'm talking about here. And he asked, the wife actually asked the woman, is it true that many women go through this form of abuse? And the woman said, I do not know a woman who has not been through that. And I believe, and once again, I figured it was the case. Not that I thought it would be that high, but I do think that one of the significant reasons is because of this. I could go on and talk about different countries in the world and some specifics on this. But I won't. I'll leave it at that. Intestinal permeability and recent suicidal behavior. A small preliminary study has reported that in those who recently had suicidal behavior, there is a statistical increase in their levels of intestinal permeability, and this may be one of the factors in inflammation in people with emotional health issues. And something that it's not the only cause of one of the most common reasons for insomnia is caffeine. Some people just don't break it. They drink caffeine, maybe they even have just 1 cup in the morning, but different people have different levels of breaking down caffeine in their body, and some people it just doesn't break down very fast, so they may have just a cup of coffee in the morning, and they still struggle with insomnia at night. And but other people may drink it later in the day, and they struggle with insomnia. I struggled with it my whole childhood, because I always drank coffee and Mountain Dew and all those and I just used to lie in bed and just struggle to fall asleep. I just thought I thought too much until I stopped drinking caffeine, and then boom, I could just, now it probably hardly takes me 95 minutes to fall asleep typically. I fall asleep fantastic. But I have one trick. There's 2 tricks I've learned in my life. One of them was counting backwards from 1,000 by maybe by 13 or something. So you're like 1,987. And it's kind of hard to do that because you gotta like try to, it's tiring. And finally you're like, okay, you know? That's one. But the one that I do most every night, that one I don't do very often. The other one, I had memorized the book of Mark, and so I just go over one of the chapters in my head while I'm going to sleep almost every night. And before I get to the end of the chapter, I fall asleep. So that one's been very beneficial to me also, and much more useful than counting backwards from 1,000 by 13. You know, that doesn't really do, I guess it's kind of a brain workout, but but spicy food and sleep disruptions. Research in the International Journal of Psychophysiology reveals that spicy food can disrupt sleep by increasing the awake time, lowering the amount of stage 2 sleep and causing people to fall asleep slower. And sometimes when you eat spicy food, you may actually fall asleep fine, but you might wake up also and then struggle to get back to sleep later. So if you struggle, that's something to consider, trying to get rid of the spices out of the diet. And I guess we already looked at that. I didn't need to put that in there. So I'm going to tell you a little experience of my wife, and I'm not proud of this. I actually wish it weren't true. That's my wife and I. Actually, I'll put this. Okay, I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you. Yeah, okay, I'll just leave. We'll get back to that. So my wife and I, once again, I told you we liked Thai food. I love spicy food. I grew up eating some of the spiciest food in the world, like habanero peppers. Now they have even hotter ones, but I didn't know of the hotter ones back then. And if anybody knows, if you bite into a habanero makes a jalapeno seem like a carrot, right? I mean, they're so hot, it's insane. And that burning not only burns your tongue, but I mean, it actually burns all the way through. You find out when you go to the bathroom, it burns then too. It's horrible when you're eating that spicy. But nevertheless, so I get married, and I come from, I do come from a background where there was arguing in the house and so forth, and that's where, you know, the way I grew up, and I love my parents, and I have a great relationship with them. But, you know, we grew up with a lot of arguing in the house, and my wife and I, she grew up in a family where there was a lot of arguing in the house. And we thought, we don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. So we get married, and after a while, guess what we're doing? We're arguing. Like almost every day. And you might think, well, maybe you didn't like each other? No, we actually did. We really enjoyed each other's company. But the smallest things could just set us off, and we'd get frustrated. And we were trying to be Christians, so we're reading our Bibles every day, we're praying together every day, we're asking the Lord to help us not do that tomorrow, and then we do it tomorrow again, and it wasn't good. But we really did enjoy each other's company most of the time, except for any time we annoyed each other, and then we get angry. And this went on for years, sadly. I wish it weren't true, and I wish I didn't have to tell the story. But then, we actually had read some of the quotes like I just read a moment ago about spices. And I always thought, but I never notice the days that I eat them and the days that I don't. I never see a correlation. Like, I don't see any difference. So then, after years of being married, we decided, let's try to go like a whole month with no spicy food. And I don't mean mild spice, no spice. Like 0. And so let's just see what happens, because I've never, ever gone a week of my life of it, ever. So I was like, okay, so we did. We just literally cut every single spice out of our diet just to see what happened. So you know what happened the next day? We argued just as much as the day before. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and probably 7 to 10 days, but somewhere around 7 to 10 days or 2 weeks, somewhere in there, we started to calm down. We started to become patient with each other. And things that would have made us frustrated, now we would just chuckle at it. We would just kind of laugh at it. And our marriage got better and better. And then, so we got through the whole month, and our marriage was better than it had ever been. And so, you know, we just kept going. So we went another month, and then we had this Indian couple who invited us out to an Indian restaurant. We wanted to be nice to them, so we went. And it was there's different levels of spice in Indian restaurants too, and this was the hottest. I've been to India a couple times also. In India, the hottest kind of food in India is called andhra. And andhra is the hottest, and I can eat that. I mean, I can handle it on my tongue, That doesn't mean I handle it at my, I get frustrated later. But, so I ate it, and by the way, I really enjoyed it, because I like that food. And so I ate it that night, or that day, and then later that night, we were just as friendly as the day before. But the next day, I'm sad to say, I spoke totally rudely to my wife. And then somebody, we were staying at somebody's house because we were speaking there, and not at their house, but near them, and my wife was cooking some food in her Instant Pot. And somebody in that house, not myself, came and unplugged it when it was like partway through cooking. And when she saw it, she was so angry. She was so angry in her heart. Now, actually, nobody was in the building at the moment or in the house, so she didn't get angry with somebody. But in her heart, she was like, what were they thinking? She was so angry at them. And she's like, so angry that she's like, Lord, she started praying, Lord, why am I so angry? This is kind of crazy. Like, this is irrational how angry I am. And she was like, this is nuts. And so she came back to me later that day, and I spoke sadly, rudely to her a second time that day. And she said the second time, she said, why are you acting like this? And I literally stopped right at that moment, because I was thinking, I was like, yeah, this is weird. We haven't been doing this. And then she told me what she went through getting angry. And I said, well, you know what we ate yesterday, don't you? And she said, no. I said, yeah, I think so. And we have tried this. Now, we have tried this over and over with near 100% correlation in our marriage. And typically for us, it doesn't bother us the day we eat it. Like, I don't notice a difference the day I eat it. It takes time for it to go through. It's not like you go to the bathroom or you eat food, unless you get food poisoning. You don't eat food and then run to the bathroom and dump it out, right? You eat it, and it might take 24 hours, or if you have a slower transit time, it might take longer. So it takes time for it to go through and irritate the tender coating of the digestive organs. And so as it does that, it negatively impacts, it causes the inflammation, because bacteria, undigested proteins, and endotoxins pass right through into the bloodstream. It creates this stress in the gut-brain connection through that vagus nerve. So it's stressing out the brain. And so we become more likely to be combative at that point. Now, I gotta clarify, I have met, and maybe you all are like these people, you're out here thinking, man, I have a real heathen speaking to me tonight. And because maybe none of you ever argued in your marriage. I've met at least five couples that have told me they never argued one time in their entire marriage. And that's awesome. And if that's you, God bless you. It's like you bred sin right out of your family, But sadly, I don't have that experience. I wish I did, But nevertheless, we have found that it makes such a difference in our lives. We've shared this around the world, and we've had people come to us repeatedly and say, hey, I implemented this, and it's changed my marriage. It's changed the way I act with my family. Even single people telling me to change that, it made in their life. And it's something that, now, if you are one of those patient people all the time, the thing that it seems to do is accentuate what you're more prone to. So, once again, some people are not prone to depression, so eating it isn't going to make them more prone to depression. It might make them more prone to anger. It might make them more prone to lust. It might make them more prone to kind of anxiety or addiction. So it kind of accentuates what you struggle with. So it's not the same for everybody. So not everybody's going to see it as potently as somebody like me. And I'm not telling you that you can never eat like that. You get to eat whatever you want, and I don't judge anybody. As I said, I can sit down with my dad, and he can eat whatever, and I can eat whatever I eat, and there's no judgment either way. So none of this is putting anybody else down. I say this because it literally is one of the greatest experiences of my life to discover this. It literally changed my marriage. It gave me a happy marriage. Even though I loved my wife anyway, even though we had this, and by the way, since we were Christian, I knew the Bible said, do not let the sun go down on your anger, right? And so we would apologize every night before going to bed. We would. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry too. Lord, help us not do this tomorrow. And then we do it again tomorrow, And until we experience this. And it has been such a blessing for us. We had one more story. We had a couple. Somebody told me their story. I was down in Brazil. My wife and I were down in Brazil. I was speaking around the country. And somebody told us about this couple. And then I met them. And they actually go back and forth between Brazil and the United States. They make money in the U.S., and they have this amazing mountain home out in the beautiful countryside of Brazil. But they were this super happy couple. And they ate standard Brazilian food their whole life. And Brazilians are not spicy eaters by and large. There's a section of Brazil that eats spicier, but they were not from that region. And so they ate the standard Brazilian food, which is tasty, just not spicy. And then they went to do mission work, this husband and wife, over in India. And while they're there, they sit down with this doctor and they prepare a meal for him. And he sits down at the meal and he looks at it and he can immediately tell it's not spicy. Because all food in India is yellow. You know, like, it has like a yellow tint because there's all these, mixture of spices in there, curry and whatnot. And so he sits down and he could see their food was not yellow. And he looked at it and he said, "You don't have any spice on it." And they're like, "Oh, this is a Brazilian. We're from Brazil. This is the way we eat." And he's like, "You have to have some spices." Because in their mind, you can't go a single meal, not one single meal without spice. It's not even fathomed. It's like going a meal with zero salt in America. It's just like, people can't imagine such a thing could happen, right? And so he's like, he's pushing them. He's like, "You gotta have some cayenne." She's like, "No, we're just, it's not our culture. We just don't have any in the home." And he kept pushing, like, "You've gotta have some in your house." And it was like getting a little uncomfortable, because imagine, you just made somebody a meal, and he's just pushing, like, you gotta have, and it hit her. She's like, she had heard that a natural remedy for strokes or heart attack, that potentially, and did I tell you about the cayenne and strokes and so forth? Okay, I'll tell you real quick. I haven't seen it. I have seen research that shows that it can cause vasodilation. It can cause the dilation of blood vessels. If somebody, you stick some cayenne in your mouth and boom, it'll dilate the blood vessels. So I've never seen any research, though, if somebody's actually having a heart attack or a stroke, that it would work. But I have one anecdotal story. I was talking with a medical doctor down from Uchee Pines in Alabama, and I sat there with this doctor, and he told me, he said, "We had a guy who had a stroke right here in our clinic." And their clinic is it's not like an emergency room. It's not made for people to have a stroke and to deal with that. They're dealing with lifestyle issues, hopefully, before you have the stroke. But the guy who comes, he has a stroke right there. The guy goes completely unconscious. And they're like, "Well, let's try they take some cayenne and they put it under his like unconscious body. They put it under his tongue." He said the moment it got in the tongue, the guy just shot right up. And so I'm not going to guarantee it'll work like that. I'm not going to tell you it'll work like that. But that's quite an anecdotal story. It's worth a try. Somebody has a stroke and they're unconscious. It's like they might die anyway. I mean, a little cayenne under the tongue isn't going to really probably make that. It's probably not going to have too many side effects. I guess they could breathe it in or something. But nevertheless, so she thinks about it and she's like, "Yeah, I have a little tiny vial in my purse just in case I'm around somebody with a stroke or a heart attack." So he's like, "Go get that." And so she grabs it and he dumps the whole thing on his food, and only then he can eat the meal. Well, then the whole meal he tries to convince her and her husband that you need to eat spices. And so they're convinced. And so they start doing it, and at first they don't like it, because if you're not used to it, it's kind of tough. But they start doing it, and after a while, you actually like that pain. Right? It's like I got addicted to the pain of smoking. It actually hurt my throat, but I liked it after a while. Praise the Lord, God gave me victory over that, but that's what addiction can do. But nevertheless, so they had been a happy couple with a happy marriage with a happy daughter. And now after a while, the husband and wife are bickering. They're at each other's throats, not physically, but they're angry with each other. Their daughter is angry with them. They hadn't been like this before. And they're trying to do ministry. And their marriage is just kind of going downhill, but they're still spiritual people. And so the wife, after a while, she prays. She's like, "God, what happened? We had a happy marriage. We had a happy daughter. We had a good relationship in our family. What happened to us?" And she said, literally while she was praying, she said, "God told me it's the cayenne. It's the cayenne." She's like, "What, really?" She had not heard my presentation. I haven't seen anybody go through this research that I've shared with you. I haven't seen anybody compile this. And it's just something that we found by just looking at the scientific studies. But she had never seen us talk about it. And so she goes back to her husband and daughter, and she's like, "You know how we've been having all kinds of problems in our family?" She said, "I prayed about it, and God told me it was the cayenne." And the husband and daughter said, when we first ate it, we didn't like it, but now we kind of like it. We don't know if we want to give it up. But they said, but if God told you, let's give it a try. And so they cut the cayenne out of their diet, and they went back to being a happy couple with a happy daughter. Literally changed their life. I can tell you story after story. Somebody even in this area I can tell you about. Same thing, the father, the family noticed whenever he would eat it after that, next couple days, he'd be fuming at the kids and angry with the wife, and he started noticing, and he finally cut it out of his diet, and if somehow something happened, maybe people bring it to church or whatever, watch out, Dad's had some spicy food, we gotta be careful now, And for some people, like myself, it can just make us way more prone to that. So, once again, not pushing it on you. You can do anything with this information you want, but it also could save some marriages. And maybe some people might just stick out their marriage anyway, because they're good Christian people, but wouldn't it be better to have a happy marriage than just sticking it out and suffering with the same problem year after year, right? But once again, I want to clarify with this. The reason people don't see the correlation is because it doesn't necessarily, some people it does make a difference the day of. My wife and I, it doesn't. It takes about a day or two. But some people it does, but often people don't notice it because it may not impact you today, it can impact you tomorrow, and then it doesn't go away after a day. It can take, like I said, a week or more sometimes for your intestines to heal up those junctions being open and to tighten back up and have those nice tight junctions. So it can take a while. So that's why people, and if they had it maybe every 4 days, well, it may never have time to heal, so they never see the correlation. So spicy food is associated with higher rates of cancer. A meta-analysis of 39 studies looked at spicy food intake and the risk of cancer. Researchers discovered that spicy food intake was associated with increased incidence of cancer. And same thing with dementia. 4,000 plus people, they found that higher rates of dementia in those who consume more chili, whether it's fresh or dry. So I want to close with some positive things, not just negative things here. Are there anything else we can do to help lower stress levels? I may have shared this before, but can reading lower stress levels? Research out of the University of Sussex looked at the effect of different activities on stress levels. 2 physical reactions to stress are increasing stress hormones and increasing heart rate. Okay, I showed this here. The researchers had subjects increase their heart rates by certain exercises or tests, and then they tried different methods of relaxation. These included activities like going on a walk, listening to music, and also reading. And it turned out that the most powerful method of lowering stress levels was reading. Simply reading for as little as 6 minutes can lower stress levels by approximately 68%. That's incredible. So, if God knew this, maybe he could have given us a book to read. Well, it turns out he did, and look what he said. Revelation 1 verse 3 said, blessed. Does anybody know what the word blessed means? It means to be happy. That's right. Happy is he that reads. And they hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. It's interesting because it's talking about the book of Revelation, and many people in society are afraid of the book of Revelation. It actually says reading it will make you what? Happy. Because number one, it reveals more about Jesus. It's the revelation of Jesus Christ, right? It's not just a revelation of the Antichrist or this or that. It is the revelation from Jesus himself. And so I want to challenge you. This is kind of the end of the seminar. Health is important. But even if you're healthy for 100 years, that would be a great blessing. But we don't live forever here on earth, right? And God wants to make us healthy for eternity. And that's why I want to challenge you. The one thing I will challenge you to do is to spend time daily with Jesus in His Word. It changed my life. I didn't grow up reading the Bible, but when I first began, when I was in late high school, early college, it was there that I had an atheist mock me for never having read the Bible. And I read it because he mocked me. And it changed my life. And I'm so thankful that he did that. I'm sure that was not his intent, but it was wonderful what happened. Because out of pure pride, I read the Bible through for the first time. But it was during that process that my heart was changed. The Bible says in 1 Peter 1:23 that we are born again by the Word of God, which lives and abides forever. So we're changed. Our hearts are changed by the Word of God. God can give us victory over bad habits, over anger problems, over lust problems, over eating addiction, over whatever it is. Jesus can give us the victory. And one of the things that can keep us connected with Him is spending time in His Word. I'll say a prayer, and then if you have any questions, actually, I'll share with you a short video, and then I'll ask you if you have any questions. We won't keep too long. Heavenly Father, thank you for these 6 weeks. I know it's been over the course of longer than 6 weeks, but the 6 weeks we've been together. Thank you for, Lord, what you are doing in lives and how you can give victory over various things. Thank you for what you did in my wife's life and mine through simple health changes. Lord, I pray that if there's someone here struggled, maybe like my wife and I did, that you would help them have the courage to say, why not give it a try? It's worth it. Why not? What if it worked? What would we give up? Maybe a little bit of taste for a few days until our taste buds change? And Lord, that they'd find some of the same great blessings that we have. Lord, and I pray that if someone here has not tried spending time with you in your word, that just like me, although when I first began to read it, I didn't even enjoy it. It took a while until my mind and my heart were changed. Lord, I pray that we would spend time with our Savior Jesus, and we would become more like Him. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to share with you, Candy asked me if I had a flyer, and I did, but I wasn't able to get back to the health center before coming here today. I'm going to share with you a short video clip from the health center that we're starting. This is not the whole clip, so I cut it. It's just short. But this is a little bit of info from some of the folks that we're working with to start the Lifestyle Center. Hopefully it's not too loud. There's my friend Andy Weaver. You may have seen him before.
Had several children. I became very aware that this is taking its toll on Naomi. And we started just buying books on health and everything we could find on health. And to see, what do we need to do in order for her health to improve and her to be able to hold up and be here for her children. And and he shared with me the 8 laws of health. And I remember looking at the 8 laws of health, and I thought, that has to work. Like, it's so practical, that has to be the answer. And it doesn't cost me a dime. And I was so impressed, and I thought, get more sunshine, and pray more, trust in God, and eat healthy. All these things I was open to. I just had to have somebody saying, this is what it looks like. And it changed our life forever. And of course, along with that, we became very open to the spiritual things. And it just went from one to another. And here we are, almost 10 years. Where's that? And loving it.
I just don't know where I'd be today if it wasn't for the Westville mission.
So I was almost 8 years old when my parents left, and at first I did not like the health message at all. It took some getting used to.
We are at another crossroads. Our young people are growing up, are becoming young adults, and they have a mission. They want to be part of the mission of the church. You and I are shunned. We're excommunicated. Our children are not. Our children, our offspring, they have an opportunity that we don't have because they're not shunned. And so I think the young people are right when they say, let us get into medical missionary work. If you look at the Amish lifestyle, it's a very healthy lifestyle except for how they eat. Largely, it's a healthy lifestyle otherwise.
I had a part-time job at 12 years old, and when I was 15, 16 years old, I had a full-time job working on an organic farm.
So growing up Amish, work was just a part of normal everyday life. Cooking, feeding the animals, keeping the property maintained. It's just been a normal part of life.
They get a lot of sunshine, and they get a lot of physical labor.
So from a very young age, I've always been interested in medical work. I thought of becoming a midwife, just potentially something in the medical field as God opens or closes doors.
We're in the heart of the world's largest Amish community. It's so, and the heart diseases that kill my people. And those are all diseases that are untreatable.
I think for me, one of the most exciting things about starting a lifestyle center would be to teach other people the healthy lifestyle and show them how much better you can feel and be more active. Even like I was really young, but I could definitely tell the difference. Like waking up, you don't feel sick. So it'd be very, very exciting to teach other people how to cook and how to live a healthy lifestyle so that they feel good.
And at the same time, it not only helps them to build upon what the foundation that we as adults have laid for them, it also is a great opportunity to reach a largely unreached people group.
And this lifestyle center would be like a dream come true for me to be able to put that into reality and practice something medical.
What I see within the Lifestyle Center is not only can it help people from the outside overcome their health issues if they have any, or overcome their depression, whatever they may be struggling with, not only can it help with that, but it can also help with their spiritual life, getting them to know God for themselves.
So I would say that we first are very thankful for the support we've gotten so far, and we would ask prayers for continued guiding and leading however the Lord leads.
Having a lifestyle center or a life center for me or any of my friends who want to help gives us an opportunity to work with people.
Definitely a huge advancement for us as West Salem Mission when it comes to evangelism, the idea of a lifestyle center. I think that will be probably one of our most successful means that we will ever have in reaching outreach.
If you feel impressed to help us financially, that would be very much appreciated. Definitely needed property and buildings and whatever all goes with that to make it happen.
If you feel impressed, you support us, you are supporting a very worthy cause. And I want to say thank you to those of you that have supported us in the past. And we'll just see how the Lord leads. If you have any questions, by all means reach out to us. We are always here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, we do have the facility now, so now this was recorded earlier, so this is the facility, and if anybody, don't feel any pressure, but if anybody has a means and feels a burden to help out in this cause, the website where you donate, it is a 501c3, so it is tax deductible. It's foresthillcenter.com. That's the facility. We already have it. We have the furniture being finished right now. Some of the furniture is finished, made by some Amish. We are also looking to get a little bit of some hydrotherapy equipment and a sauna also. So those are some things that maybe around $12,000 or so, something like that. So the Lord puts it on your heart, no pressure. But that's the website, foresthillcenter.com. And one more quick video, separate from that, I'll show you.
Natural remedies are either loved or laughed at. Conventional medication is trusted by most almost implicitly. But it turns out that different antibiotics, which are considered the greatest form of drug in history, are associated with 41% increased rates of Parkinson's disease, 40% increased risk of gastric cancer, 40% greater risk of lung cancer, 60% higher risk of rheumatoid arthritis, 23 to 56% greater risk of depression, and they are also associated with a higher risk of our #1 killer, heart disease. Are there other options? In this lecture series, we will look at many natural remedies, including herbs that have been tested head-to-head in scientific journals against some of the standard pharmaceutical medications. And we will discover that many natural remedies have been shown in evidence-based research to be just as good or better than many standard medications, in many cases with significantly lower side effects. We begin the series looking at some of the history of natural remedies from Egypt through Rome, all the way down to Native Americans. Session 2 delves into how to live a healthy life so that on the whole you do not have to use remedies. Then from session 3, 4, 5, and 6, we delve into study after study and find remedies for maladies ranging from migraines to PMS symptoms, how to change lifestyle to potentially reverse ED, and cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood sugar lowering remedies. A remedy for irritable bowel syndrome, in addition to remedies for depression and anxiety. We will look at a simple herb that helps as a sleep aid and many more. So come along on a tour of history and research and learn more at anchorpointfilms.com.
All right. Well, So we do have some of the DVDs if anybody still has an old DVD player and has any interest in that.